This is our first show that we have done since last year, but it only you're muted.
Oh, well, how did I get muted?
Not you. She
Oh.
is. There's a
I'm muted.
she went to say wow, and I just saw her mouth open.
Oh,
Welcome back. Happy New Year, guys.
Yeah,
happy
Happy New
New
Year.
Year.
This is my first show of the new year as well.
Yes,
Woohoo.
yes. We haven't done one since last year, but it only seems like it's been 2 weeks. Isn't that weird?
It is weird, isn't it?
Yes.
It's been a whole year.
Anyways, welcome to 2024. Welcome to the Twisted Pair. Let's kick it off right. I'm Greybeard.
And I am Ash Red. And today, our guest has been on the show before. And so I'm going to introduce him again for the second time, but in a new year. So we have Greg Free. So, Greg Free, please tell us about the. I had a rhyme. It was a Dr. Seuss moment. Sorry.
Greg Free, tell us about the.
Yeah.
Tell us about thee. Greg Free, I started a cigar company almost 5 years ago. It's been a fun and exciting ride, and I can't wait to kind of get into what we've got coming up, what our schedule looks like, what big conventions and festivals we'll be at this year. This is going to be the year, and usually in the boutique cigar industry, the fifth year, that's kind of the one where people start talking about you. So people are talking about me. I'm glad to be here and do some talking myself.
Well, we're talking about you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
before we get into it, we are the Twisted Pair. So let's go around with what we're pairing. And Red, in honor of Dry January, would you please let everybody know what you're pairing?
Okay, so I am participating in Dry January. And so for this evening, since I know the profile of Greg Cigars, the teas that I had, I didn't think would particularly go with this because I've been going more tea routes. But now that I think about it, I have a rose mint tea that I think would have gotten really well with this. So now I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't bring a rose mint tea because I'm like, God, that would have been good. Because I've have like 20 teas now. It's ridiculous. But I am going with the oldie but goodie that, if you smoke cigars, a lot of people do the mineral water, and it is just regular Chico. I didn't get the one with the lime. I'm just boring. So, but it's something that I chose to do. So next time I'm gonna have to get the rose mint tea and try it with the cigar to see how it would go with it.
And,
So,
and which cigar are you smoking?
well, I just thought y'all could read my mind. So I'm going with the Bushwhacker, and it is the San Andreas. So that is the
Mm.
one. Yummy. I already
Well,
know it's really good. So I mean, there we go.
well, I'm with you. I mean, we're all fans of Greg Free cigars. I'm going with the Bushwhacker, the Habano. And had I been thinking about it, I would have brought my rose lavender uh, tea because I think the rose lavender tea would have gone really good with
Hmm.
this particular Habano. But instead, I am going with what you say. I never surprise you because I always do it. I'm going with a bourbon. So I'm going
What?
with the Kentucky tea.
Wow.
Right? Surprise, surprise. This is Old Tub's bottled and bond, unfinished, unfiltered, non-chill filtered, uh, which is a very, very good one. So, Greg, let us know what you are. I know what you are, but the world needs to know what you're pairing.
So this is crazy that we all picked up a bushwhacker. So I've got the bushwhacker habano, and I chose it because I'm drinking Blood Oath, which is this is packed number 4, so it's an older one, and it's under 100 proof. So I would normally call this drinking at home whiskey, but I could probably drink this out. It's really sweet though, and so I didn't want the cigar to be too overwhelming because I really wanted to experience the whiskey, which is why I didn't go San Andres this time, and I went Habano.
Right.
So that was kind of my logic behind it, and honestly, the uh, the blood oath, because it's so many baking spices, caramel and vanilla mostly, but just kind of that background of baked goods, it's really pairing very well with the habano. I'm very happy.
If I remember it right, there's a little bit of allspice and a little bit of cinnamon in in the back end of your sip of that pour. It's been
Yes,
a while since I've had it, but I want to say that there's a bit of allspice and a little bit of cinnamon on the back end.
I would agree with that. And I had for dinner, I had a pork chop with the African spice bearberry,
Mm,
which is a combination of all those flavors we're talking about. So
yeah,
cinnamon and allspice and cardamom, and so all of these flavors are really marrying up very well. I think I just did it right. I hope.
it sounds like you did, especially with the habano. So while we're on this, the bushwhacker, we want to get into the name change and talk a little bit about the name change, but I would like to do a little bit of a refresher, if we can, on some of your blends, especially the bushwhacker and the difference between the habano and the or the San Andres that Red is smoking.
So you want me to get into the differences? So
Yes, the
I
blend.
think that was to me, right? Yeah. So the blend
Yes,
is
it is.
consistent. Yeah, the blend is consistent on the core. So when I came out with my first two lines, I really just wanted shelf presence. So both of my first two lines had two wrappers, but the core blend was consistent within each of those two wrappers. So the Bodacious had an Ecuadorian Maduro on the dark side, Ecuadorian Habano on the light side. And then with the Bushwhacker, I did the San Andres wrapper on the Maduro side, and then I on the light side I did the Habano as well. The difference between the core of those two lines, though, is that the Bushwhacker's core tobacco is aged 50% longer than the Bodacious core. So it's a
Mm.
smoother, richer profile under that Habano, and the Bodacious is brighter and fresher. So if you
And
smoke
so
the
so so this habano is the Ecuadorian habano,
correct.
which explains all of the sweet, fruity flavors that we're getting out of it. And that's
Hmm.
that's why it's one of my favorite wrappers.
Well, and I'm going to pause you right here. So, for the viewers who are trying to say, how can I tell a difference between a wrapper of a cigar? Does the wrapper really make a difference? So, this is when you're able to actually get a cigars that are exactly the same except for the wrapper, and you can try them back to back to see what the difference is.
Absolutely,
And
that's a great point.
yeah, they are remarkably different.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, oh
That's
yeah.
that San Andres carries so much weight,
Yeah.
and it overwhelms the core. But
Mm-hmm.
the core, because it's nice and smooth, it it kind of brings it down a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not harsh at all. That San Andres sometimes it can have a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of harshness with the sweetness and the cocoa and the coffee, all those flavors you get from it.
Hmm.
With a
Mm-hmm.
mild Dominican core, because there's no Lajero in that cigar. It's just
Mm-hmm.
Dominican filler, Dominican binder. It's all that Pelado Cubano, which is just very, very, I call it field and floral. And so you kind of
Mm-hmm.
mix that with that San Andres richness, and it's just a great combination.
Yeah, that's why I'm kicking myself that I forgot I had rose mint tea.
And I would say to add to your point, Red, it's important if you are doing comparisons for to be able to understand the different flavors, to try to keep the vitolas around the same.
Yeah.
You don't want to say like go with a Toro in one and then a Petite Corona in the other and expect to.
Right.
I mean, the differences are going to be really profound and magnified because the wrapper flavors off of that Petite Corona, because it's such a smaller gauge,
Right.
is going to be so more prominent than it would be on the Toro.
Correct. Okay. So now you can go on to your other cigars. Sorry, as I took us down a rabbit trail.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what's the question? You want me to talk about the other blends?
Oh, your other blends that you have.
Yes.
Okay, so we talked about Bodacious. That was the first line, and that came out in
Mhm.
May of 2019, which is how we're coming up on that 5 year mark now. And we did that one in two wrappers, but also three Vitolas, and then Bushwhacker, same thing. So it's a good point about the Vitolas. Make sure you're testing them in the same Vitolas, and because ring gauge is really the primary factor there, unless you're starting to get into box press or something else. So
Mhm.
Bushwhacker, three Vitolas, slightly different Vitolas than the Bodacious. And then we came out with the first cigar that I blended myself, which is the Midnight Bender. And the Midnight Bender is using that same San Andres wrapper, but the core of it's got double Lajero. So that's lifting that cigar
Mhm.
up quite a bit from the Bushwhacker with the San Andres wrapper. And that's right today. That's our strongest cigar in the lineup.
Now,
It's not
now
a true.
I want to pause you for a moment there, if I can.
Mhm.
That you said it has a double Ajero. Is that a Dominican double? Is it the double Ajero off of a Dominican? Is it off of a uh, Nicaraguan Esteli? What seed is that, and what region is that?
So all of our core tobacco comes from 140-hectare farm in the Cibao Valley. So we're the farm. If you know the valley, it kind of runs east to west mostly, and
Okay,
it's about 25 miles west of Santiago and Tamboree, where the factory is. So that Lajero that we're using in the Midnight Bender is from that farm. So it's Dominican Pelado Cubano Lajero. So it's the same plants that we're using for the core filler tobacco and the binder
right.
tobacco. It's just the Lajero. So it's not a strong, rich Nicaraguan Lajero, but the point of that blend was to highlight Dominican tobacco. We put a Dominican binder under that San Andres wrapper, which it's very hard to find the Dominican binder that burns hot enough to keep the San Andres going. So it's a
Yeah.
very unique. It's mostly Dominican with just that San Andres on the outside.
So let me kind of explain a little bit to the audience on why I asked specifically about that question, because there's a misnomer around Lajeros that Lajeros, because Lajeros there, that it's automatically spicy. It depends upon where the seed is, the terroir, the region, the environment, and what type of seed that it is, because seeds are going to give us particular notes along with the terroir, the ground soil, and all of that. The Lajero is going to be much more intensified of those flavors. That's that region, that terroir, that seed is known for, because it's higher up on the plant, getting more sun, getting has much more nutrients, and is a hardier leaf than the lower one. So that's why they are stronger in those flavors, but doesn't necessarily mean spice. Doesn't necessarily mean peppery. Peppery coming in from Esteli, from Condego, from Ometempe in Nicaragua, 100% yes. Coming from
Yes,
Dominican, you're going to get those flavors that Dominican is known for.
absolutely. And that Midnight Bender, while it's kind of a medium full for my palate, there's no burn on the retro. There's no pepper that's going to take your nose away from the flavor. It's just all about the flavor.
I want to show this. This is how good the Midnight Bender is. So if you can see that, can you see that okay?
I can see it.
So, shows a 96. That's what we reviewed the Midnight Bender at. Joe Galino, who's one of our writers, reviewed the Midnight Bender and scored it at a 96. Fantastic cigar, brother.
Thank you. And I want to give Joe a big kiss. That's a great review.
Take pictures. If you do, have somebody take pictures.
Uh, I
That
will.
way we can post them and burn Joe.
Hmm. So I'll dive into the next line that followed after that. So the next line after that was Sun Country, and it's still our number one seller. It was originally released in just a Toro, but we released it 18 months ago in the Corona. I prefer the Corona. I think it's a great expression of that
Hmm.
blend, and the core of that blend is that Dominican Pelado Cubano Lajero. And then in the remaining Dominican filler, we blended a Mexican San Andres wrapper leaf. So you've got this
Mm,
core that's got all the flavor of a full bodied stick. And then you put a Dominican binder, but an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper. And you get this medium to medium plus smoking experience, but with all that flavor just coming through. So first you taste Connecticut in the first half inch, and then it's
Hmm.
all core. The
Hmm.
wrapper just kind of disappears in that particular blend, which from my perspective, I'm not a big Connecticut fan. So I wanted a Connecticut wrapper, but I wanted it to be, kind of speak to the brand name being strong and free.
right.
So that's go ahead.
That's a good cigar. It's one of my favorite of your lines because of it's a flavor bomb.
Hmm. So then we came out with the Segundo Viento or Second Wind. The core of that one is also that same. I love that little box press. In the Robusto, especially, I think the blend works the best. We try not to release things where it's not working perfectly. And the Toro's a little bit skinnier. They both have the same burn time, but just a really solid stick. I do find on that cigar, that's one of our cigars that really does change dramatically in the final third from my palate's perspective. But it's double Dominican Lajero in the core, Dominican filler, Dominican binder, Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, and a box press. And we didn't intend to come out with a box press, but it's really the blends. Once we've chosen a blend, we start smoking in different vitolas, different ring gauges, and that particular blend just really took off. I mean, it kind of spoke the
Mhm.
loudest in that box press expression.
So I want to take a moment and just say hi to some of the people that are tuned in. We've got Corey Wiley that is tuning in, Matt Ty, Gabe, who's one of our own, and TC, Terrence, who's one of our own, and Chris Coulter, who's one of our own. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. Wow, there's a whole gaggle of people in there.
Yeah, I'm kind
There
of
is.
nervous. I'm kind of nervous to see what the pole vaults, the the female pole vaulters.
Who
Uh,
who is asking that question?
Matt
Matt Ty.
Ty says, I want to ask Greg about the female pole vaulters.
So in my lounge, when there's not a sporting event that like there's not a football game, there's not a soccer match, there's not baseball, if there's nothing else to just have in the background with no sound on, I always put on in my home lounge women's pole vaulting. And it's gotten to the point where my core tasting crew, all 12 of us, know more about women's pole vaulting than any other sport. We know their names. We know their highest jumps of the year. We know who's the record leader for this year. We know who holds their country's title. It's insane. It's a very athletic sport,
Mhm.
but it's
Oh,
just something
yeah.
to have on in the background. And
Yeah,
they're
my son was the number one in the state of Texas for pole vaulting.
mm, that's
So
awesome.
That,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's awesome. But we're now going to be calling Greg and his crew female pole vaulter fanboys.
It's we are. I mean, and it's crazy. Like, I mean, most
It's a
people
lot of
couldn't name
strength
a women's
in the
pole
core.
vaulter, but we know them
Mm-mm,
all.
very cool.
Uh, we got somebody else in here, Ra- Raul Ramos. It says what? You don't like Puerto
Raul
Ricans?
Raul Ramos.
All right. So
Raul
how she says it? Uh,
Raul Ramos.
Yeah, I just call
he,
them Raul.
he says, "What's up, Bree?" So the next cigar I want to hear a bit more about. It's one of Corey's favorites. It was one of the top. It was one of my top five for last year for 2022. One of my top fives. One of the best Connecticut there is. The sun grown.
It's my next one in the
Mm.
lineup. It's crazy. I own a brand and I only have two cigars out. Well, I have 50 cigars out here, but just there's 25 of the Avalanche and 25 of the Habano because I just sometimes I just get in a groove and then I'll whatever I'm going to drink, I'll pair it with just two cigars and just start smoking through them. So I would normally start Avalanche first, but I really wanted to do the Bushwhacker Habano. So the Avalanche is a bit of a surprise because I'm not a Connecticut guy. And I spent 2 years trying to come out with a Connecticut that I could smoke, that I would enjoy on a regular basis. And finally, I just went with a wrapper that had a little bit more meat to it. So it's an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper, so it brings a little bit of white pepper kind of through the whole thing. The core of the cigar is so mild that that wrapper really carries a lot more weight, and so it's interesting to me, and I smoke a lot of them, and not just in the morning. Sometimes it's my last cigar of the night to kind of just cleanse the palate and
Hmm.
head to bed after it. But it's a cigar that I actually really enjoy, and I didn't think I could make a Connecticut after trying for 2 years. I finally was able to do it, and I really love that thing.
And that's shocking because you've admitted it on both times you've been on our show that Connecticut is not one of your favorites.
It's not. It
Oh,
And
is. It,
so it's good that you made one that you really enjoy more
well,
than once a day.
it's such an important part of the market from a numbers perspective, and it's
Hmm.
also an entry point. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately because I don't when someone comes into a shop and I'm doing a show, and they're like, I've never had a cigar, or I had like one 5 years ago, or whatever they say. I never hand them an Avalanche because I want to bring people into the medium range. So I'll
Hmm.
usually just throw them right into a Sun Country just to see what they think. And the Sun Country, in the Toro especially, won't scare them away. So it's either a Sun
Hmm.
Country or the Bushwhacker Habano that I'm smoking now. So just with a
Hmm.
little bit more umph, I think people
Hmm.
will get stuck in that mild range oftentimes. So I try not to bring them in right there because you can always go
well,
back, but sometimes it's hard to go forward.
here's part of the beef that I have with the way that the industry has just come about, with mild and medium and so forth. Your Sun Country, yes, it's a Connecticut or a Claro shade, Claro color wrapper on that. However, from a medium, mild, light, what have you, when we're talking about the body, that's the amount of smoke and how heavy that smoke feels. A strong or a light or medium strength of a cigar has to do with the nicotine and the acidity levels of it, and the ammonia levels of it. And just like a red wine, that's going to lower as that cigar ages. And this isn't saying to you because everybody in the industry does this, and we've gotten ourselves to where we're equating a dark Maduro shade wrapper, shade isn't not shade grown, but shade is in color, as being a full body cigar, and it's not. It not always necessarily is. One of the strongest cigars, kick you in the rumpus kind of cigars that that Red and I smoke on a regular occasion from Black Star is the oh
Warwick.
well, yeah, Black Warwick from
But
Black Star line.
but you're talking about Black Label Trading Company.
Yes, Black Label Trading
Porcelain.
Company, the
The
porcelain. Thank
porcelain.
you.
Yeah, you're
Well,
welcome.
but both of those are Connecticut
Hmm.
color.
Yeah.
Both claros, and they're both full strength, peppery, spicy, peppery cigars that people will say, "Oh, that's too strong," or but they'll start off on it thinking that it's a light body cigar because of the color.
Well, and that's why the tobacconist is so critical. You know, I go in shops where there's not a real tobacconist there. There's not someone walking in the humidor with customers. They're not having much communication other than ringing up the cigars when they come up to the register. If I'm in a shop like that and someone brings up a Sun Country with some real mild Connecticut's, there's got to be someone there that's going to tell them this is going to be different.
Yeah,
You
Hmm.
know, and also point people to that Sun Country when they're looking for a medium cigar because they'll look at the wrapper and think that's not going to be a medium cigar, it's going to be
oh
mild.
Right.
no, it
Well,
absolutely is. It's a great cigar.
and that kind of brings me to our point that we try to emphasize each week is, can't base what you see just based on the looks of the cigar. You have to know the binders, you have to know the wrap, especially the wrappers, the binders, and the fillers, because that's what makes up the entire cigars. And like you were saying, there's not a lot of us tobacconists who have the experience, or they haven't even smoked it. They just stick with their one cigar, and they just kind of go, "Oh, here's a light one. Take that one because it's light in color."
Hmm.
I've even been in a shop where the tobacconist recommended a porcelain to a brand new smoker because it was a lighter shade wrapper. And the tobacconist walked out, and I stopped the guy and I said, "You're new to cigars, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "I'm not going to tell you not to smoke that one, but I am going to tell you that it's a very powerful cigar," and made another recommendation. And so, and the other recommendation I made was an Espinosa La Crema. It's a much lighter, easier entry level smoke. And the guy's never smoked cigars before. Had
Yeah.
he walked out with that porcelain and started off on that porcelain, probably would have gagged, threw up, thrown the cigar away right then and there because most likely he was smoking on an empty stomach and never turned around.
Yeah.
Never bought another cigar again. And it's to that point. We equate strength and power of a cigar based upon the color of the wrapper without knowing what the full blend is.
You're absolutely right, and that's why people don't understand or appreciate someone who is a real tobacconist and can walk in the humidor with them and show them around. I mean, that's how I learned to smoke. Yeah, I smoked the same cigar for 3 years when I started in the early '90s, and then I wound up going in a cigar shop for the first time, and I said, "Here's what I've been smoking for 3 years," and I said, "I want to smoke something different," and they guided me. They sent me out of there
Hmm.
with 5 cigars that were close, and then I came back with the wrapper on the one that I liked the best. And then they gave me another 5 that were similar to that one. And I just started expanding my palate that way. But if you don't have a tobacconist that's willing to take that journey with you, you get kind of
Hmm.
lost or you get stuck.
Hmm. You get
Ye-
direct, and
Yeah.
Yep.
that's what happened to me. And I'm gonna say this because I was a female. A lot of them tried to steer me to the flavored, or they're
Hmm.
like, "Oh, you can't handle that. Is that for your boyfriend? Is that for your husband? They can handle it, but you can't handle it. You need a flavored cigar." So that when I first started smoking in the '90s, that's what was, and there wasn't very many female smokers at that time. We were
Hmm.
there, but we most of them were smoking the flavored cigars. So that's kind of another thing is women can handle the other cigars. We promise.
Well,
Oh my
it,
goodness. Yeah.
it's interesting. So I was in that new shop in Decatur, Texas when I was down there. Was that a month ago or a month ago? It was in December, I
Been about a
think.
Mhm.
month. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a month.
about a month. It was a month.
Yeah, so I had a cut and light at the Chief Cigar Lounge in Decatur, and a husband and wife came in, and the husband smoked cigars, and the wife didn't really smoke cigars. And she said, I'd like to smoke a cigar tonight. Can you recommend one for me?" And so I gave her the Sun Country Corona, and what she said to me was, "Did you give this to me because I'm a woman?" And I said, "No, I gave it to
Mhm.
you because it's a great cigar, and I think you're really going to enjoy it, and there's not a lot of smoke time." So as a newer cigar smoker, I didn't want to overwhelm you with something that you felt like you've got to spend an hour and 20 minutes on. I
Mhm.
wanted you to have a smoke with a lot of flavor that wouldn't take very long to smoke, and she really appreciated that. But there's a lot of this impression, that you're going to hand it to someone because they're a woman. And I'm like, no, I listened to what you said,
Mhm.
and I gave you a cigar that I felt was right, based on your commentary. It had nothing to do with male or female.
I want to bring up what one of the things that Gabe is saying because I agree with this
Mhm.
100%.
Mhm.
Gabe says women actually have better palates generally, so I would caution
Mhm.
against starting them on a low flavor sticks like the Macanudo Club, etc., that just taste like nothing. And I agree. Uh, you know, we we're doing a disservice to ourselves and to this industry when we're sitting there saying that, oh, a woman can't handle this or a woman can't handle that because their palate's not strong enough or what have you. I know many men whose palates are not strong enough are not mature enough to be able to distinguish particular flavors in there. And it has nothing to do with gender, it has to do with how much you focus in on training your mind to equate flavors to what you're getting out of a cigar. Quick hello to Chris Marin, Brian Singer, Chantel,
Hi,
Jeremy
Chantel.
McMahon, a couple of other people, and John Salas. Thank you guys for joining in.
Eh,
We got a question. Will you ever? So this is coming from Chris Morin. Will you ever make the second wind in a robusto?
So the second wind does come in a robusto.
So
So the
yes, you will.
I have.
He
I did.
has.
So I'm guessing that Chris has had the Toro in the second wind, which is it's a skinny Toro, and in a box press it appears to be even skinnier, but it's really a 6x50, and the Robusto is a fat Robusto at a 5 by 54, but in a
Oh,
box press, it smokes more like a 52.
I like that. I've gotten to the point where myself I really enjoy a when it comes to a Toro, a box press Toro. I think a box press Toro smokes much better than a just your standard Toro size.
It, and I'll tell you this, Karen Berger, she swears by her favorite is box press, and she said if she could make every single one of her cigars in a box press, that's what she would do.
Yeah, but a
So
lot of people don't like the mouth feel.
yeah, and
So I
that's why she doesn't do it is because it's about the mouthfeel. And I think it's because if you really think about cigars, it's always been the round. At first we started off with the small skinny ones because everyone thinks what when cigars first started that it was the Winston Churchills, the big ones with the fullers, but
Mhm.
it wasn't. It was with the Lanceros, and then we've kind of gotten away with that. And as someone who's worked in a cigar lounge, a lot of guys are like they won't try a Lancero or a box press because it doesn't look right in their hands. It doesn't look manly in their hands. That's what they told me. They want something that looks comfortable and manly in their hands, which I don't get. So maybe someone can help explain that to me. But
I'm a man and I don't get it either.
I
Give
mean,
me a Lancero. I want the Sun Country in a Lancero.
yeah, so do I. So
Mhm.
do I. We do have some stuff coming up that might tweak your interest, so we'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay,
Very
and
good.
I
Well,
think we've gotten through all of them, right? Did we go through all of them, or are we missing one?
We did, yeah. We hit the avalanche at the end there. Uh,
Okay.
at one point on the second win, everyone's got a different palate. Everyone's got different flavors that kind of speak to them. In that second win box press, I prefer the Robusto, and a lot of people prefer the Toro. Same smoke time, same price, but if
Mhm.
you've had the Toro, try the Robusto. I think you might like it.
with the Sun Country, I like the Corona over when you had the Toro on it. I think the Corona just really brings out all of those flavors that plethora of flavors that's in that cigar that makes it so good.
I would
So
agree.
yeah, so my chief tasting officer, that's his favorite cigar is the Corona, and I never thought that I would like a Corona. I didn't, but I knew in that cigar. So it came out just in the Toro. It was in the Toro for a couple years,
Hmm.
and I wanted to come out with a Corona, so I was testing all the blends and Coronas, and in that blend, the Corona to me it's a better cigar for my palate. It's a little bit more meat to it, a little bit more of that core flavor, and I just love it. And now, our new line that's coming out next comes out in a Corona as well. I'm finding myself kind of drawn to that Vitola.
Oh, it's one of my favorite Vitolas, especially
Well,
when you don't have time to sit down and smoke a Lancero.
and here's my question: is like do you see any Lanceros in your future?
I do. So
Okay.
I it it's not a big seller, but people that love them. Um, and I really want to do a midnight bender in the Lancero, but I'm struggling with the burnability. So I've
Mhm.
got some that have been in the aging room for I think 18 months now, which is a pretty long time in the aging room,
Yeah,
Mhm.
even for a San Andreas wrapper. And I'm hoping that I can get a little more burnability with a little more time. So we're back at the factory on the 4th of February. Well, actually, on the 5th, we fly in on the 4th. And I'm hoping to smoke a couple of those and see what happened. But if it's working, it's going to be another 24 months before I can release them because I'll have to make
Mhm.
a batch big enough to sell, and we'll
Mhm.
have to let them rest.
And so I kind of want to talk about like the Lancero because there's several people that says, "Ooh, I like the Lancero," or they don't like the Lancero. And if you want to feel to really know how a cigar tastes, is you're going to taste it in the Lancero because the wrapper there's not very much fillers in that one, so therefore you get more of the wrapper and then the binder. So that's why you kind of get a little bit more of an oomph to it, and they do take a little bit longer to smoke, and they are harder, more difficult to roll.
Yeah, they're the most difficult ones to roll. So
Mhm.
it's something that, like I said, we will do. I haven't tried it in the Sun Country, honestly, but I think the ring gauge would work really well because again, we're really eliminating all the Dominican filler in that case because there's really just room for Lajero, a San Andres leaf, and then your
Mhm.
binder and your wrapper. I think it would work really well. So maybe I'll talk to the factory and see if I can get some of those test.
Alright.
So here's a question that we've asked a couple of different cigar brands when it comes to making the cigars for different vitolas. Do you find yourself kind of going through a reblend as you're say switching from changing a vitola from a Toro down to a Robusto down to the Corona, or do you just go with the same one and hope for the best?
So it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So in our other cigars where we've come out with different vitolas, post primary production. So release a cigar in a Toro like the Sun Country. When we first tested that cigar, we test all of our new blends in a 6x50. And then I have a tasting crew, and we went through different ring gauges and then different vitolas to try to figure out where the blend spoke the loudest. Everyone preferred the 6x52 in the Toro. They liked the fact that it was a little bit less stated than, I guess, the 50. I preferred the 50. I actually ordered 750 in the 6x50 just for me, and did because but 11 other people in my tasting crew, 11 out of 12, preferred it in the 6x52. So I go back and I want to do a Corona cigar and I'm trying it, and it's distinctly different. So it depends on what you want to do. Like I think most brands would try to keep that blend consistently flavored in all the different vitolas, but I really love the way that it's settled in and that Corona being more of a medium
Mhm.
plus instead of just a medium. And I left it that way. And it's kind of a great way
Mhm.
for consumers to experience what happens when you change ring gauge.
Mhm.
And in that particular
Yeah.
blend, you would think the wrapper would have more influence, but it doesn't because there's less room for Dominican filler in that blend. Whereas I think in most cases I would have pared down the Lajero a little bit, pared down the San Andres a little bit, and then kept the balance, the percentage of those different components the same as the Toro size. But it tastes so good the way it was, so I left it.
Well, I want to bring this up because not everybody has 12. I love the fact that you have 12 people that are tasting and giving input, that y'all make the decision, the ring gauge, and all that. Because not everybody has 12 people. They'll give them out and everything. But you've always stayed true to your people, like to your tasting crew. And it's kind of like y'all take a vote for it. And there's not very many people out there that really listen and kind of do what their tasting crew is. So I think I want to give you props for that.
I
Thank you.
do too. I was glad you brought that up because I was going to mention something along that line, and I think we've got a couple of people like Brian who wants to get on your tasting crew. He says send me some test samples. Uh,
Yeah.
we were talking earlier about you know to Red's point of if you want to really get to know a cigar, then have it with that same core blend and the different wrappers to see how the wrappers change. Well, you brought up a good point too of taking a cigar and trying it from different vitolas. So trying a robusto, a box press robusto, a Corona, a petite Corona, so the different vitolas that you may offer on that to see how that blend changes from that. And that just kind of I just was kind of thinking about that. I think that's a good way too. But one of the things I want to come back to is where you went down to the Corona on the Sun Country and you reduce the number of the Dominican fillers so that way you can keep the San Andres and you can keep the Lajeros. How did you maintain the combustion with that? Are you using like some of the Secos and Visos off of the San Andres in there, or because you've got Lajeros aren't really great as far as the combustion rate with it. They don't burn great because there's such a hardy leaf. How because it burns great. I mean, it's a fantastic burning cigar with it. So I'm curious as to what you did as far as where the priming is on those leaves.
Yeah, so in the original Toro, that Pelado Cubano that went in the filler was Viso, and it was also the binder. But when we went to the Corona, the binder we had to switch it out to Seco to get more burnability.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So that's also a slight altering in that flavor profile, and it's bringing. Yeah, there's not a lot. Well, there's still plenty of flavor in the Seco. It's just not as much as the Viso, but
Mhm.
but it gave us the burnability we needed because we had less of the Dominican filler in the core of it. So a slight change there, and but because the core is so flavorful, the binder wasn't having a big impact on overall
Yeah.
flavor anyway, and so we were really just changing it out to get the burnability.
Well, I noticed that the in the Corona that there was just a little bit more earthy notes than was in the Toro. So that explains it because we're going to get a little bit more earthy notes out of the Seicos than we will out of the Visos and the
Hmm.
Bajeros.
Yep. That's a good pull on your part, and you have a great palate. I mean, I think I have a good palate, but there's also
Mhm.
people on my tasting crew that don't have a good palate, but they know what they like, you know.
Mhm.
So they may not pick out specific flavors, but if I'm going to speak to the market and not just put
Mhm.
out cigars that I love, it's I kind of compare it to a rock star. We'll use Jimmy Buffett. So he did all these songs that everybody wanted to hear, and then when he got famous, he started just doing songs he enjoyed, like he personally enjoyed. And I
Hmm.
love those songs just as much, but in terms of his core audience, he couldn't really play those in concert because everyone
Mhm.
wanted those original things that he had
The
really
sounds.
written
Mhm.
for the mainstream market, not for
Mhm.
himself. So
Correct.
I
Yep.
think at some point I'll get a little bit more ballsy and not listen to my crew, but my crew's done pretty good so far.
Well, there's a reason why marketing teams have their panels of consumer panels that try the products and give back feedback, and just the regular people off in and off the street that have nothing to do with the industry, whatever the industry is, but they give feedback, and that consumer feedback is important. So that again, kudos to you for having your tasting panel of all experiences and listening to what they're saying.
Thank you very much.
Now you sounded like Elvis.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm not
I can
leaving the
see him
building.
doing an Elvis impression.
Mhm.
I've been known to sing karaoke.
Oh, you might have to do it later.
Yeah. Apparently, Eagle Rare makes me sing karaoke.
Really.
Yeah.
Now, now I wonder what Blood Oath is going to make you do.
I don't know. I'm afraid. I'm very scared. I'm very, very afraid.
He's
Let,
very afraid.
let's talk a bit about the name. The, the
Okay.
the name. I mean, when you were last on, you were Fuerte Libre. Now you're uh,
Fortaleza.
Fortaleza
Fortaleza.
Libre.
Fortaleza y Libre. So we had a bit of a trademark issue with Fuente cigars. Carlito thought there would be consumer confusion between the word fuerte and the word fuente. Um, I didn't see it. Uh, I fought the good fight, and the name was important to me because I had created the name in English, translated it to Spanish just to pay homage to the culture of cigars. I didn't think there'd be a problem. I did. My attorneys did their trademark search, and no one had Fuerte anywhere, and so I went with it. And then it was during COVID, and it took a long time to get through the process because everyone wasn't working. And finally, when it got to the publication phase, Carlito's attorneys grabbed a hold of it and opposed it. And after tens of thousands of dollars and 8 months, Carlito and I finally came to an agreement. And that agreement, it was really good in the sense that, well, I didn't want to change the name, but if I had to change the name, he gave me 5 years to change it, with no opposition to me using the old name as long as I had to. And for a small company, that was critical because I don't have to throw
Mhm.
anything out. I don't have to pull product from the
Mhm.
shelf. I don't have to put
Mhm.
the new name on a cigar right away. I can wait until, because we order bands in 50,000 band lots, and it takes a long time. The boxes are ordered in advance. So For him
Mhm.
allowing me to do that and not have to have the added expense of throwing product out, throwing out swag, throwing out all of the, my shirts, everything.
Mhm.
It was a good agreement in the end. So I look forward to shaking his hand and saying, thanks a lot for coming to an equitable settlement. Let's move forward and grow the industry together.
So what does Fortaleza translate to?
To strength.
Strength. Okay, so it's still strength and free.
Exactly. So it was
Okay.
strong and free. Now it's strength and free. It's not a proper Spanish phrase to say Fortaleza y Libre. It would probably be Fortaleza. What's freedom? It would probably be. I should probably change it to strength and freedom. But I wanted to keep as much of the original name as possible. I also wanted to keep FYL Cigars, the website that I have, because that no one
Mhm.
can spell any of these words. That's not Spanish. So having
Let
FYL
alone
Cigars.
pronounce them.
Yeah. So I always wanted my email address to be FYL Cigars, so it's easy to say, Greg at FYLcigars.com. So coming up with a word, and it was actually Gabby Caffey of Caffey Cigars that he's the one that told me about the word Fortaleza. I was searching, Firme was one of them because that's, similar, but Fortaleza just kind of spoke to me. As soon as he said it, I was like, that's it. That's the one. So we did a trademark search. We filed for the trademarks. We filed for the new logo trademark. We also are trademarking strong and free. So we'll have all of these pieces to the pie kind of all wrapped up. And Carlito was also generous enough to pay for the refiling of those trademarks. So
Oh,
there's,
that,
Well,
yeah,
that's good.
there's a lot
yeah.
of positive stuff that came out of it. And
Mhm.
again, I want to find him. I tried to find him at PCA. He's so elusive. I mean, everybody wants to talk to him, so it's very hard for me
Yeah.
to get an opportunity to shake his hand and thank him
Well,
for
well,
getting through the
you
process.
you and I are both taller, so we're probably just looking right over his head.
I feel
He's
you.
a little bit shorter on the statue. So that's probably why you missed him.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, and go ahead.
I was going to say, I honestly think that him and I could sit down and smoke cigars for hours and have a really good time. But I've never met him. I've actually got boxes. I'm wrapping up my house now because I'm moving.
Mhm.
I've got old boxes that he signed for me at events. I mean, he's got a history in the industry, and I would love to
Mhm.
sit down and just have a cigar and enjoy each other's company.
Well, and I wanted to bring up. Now we're switching kind of gears, and we're going to because your names for your cigars are going to stay the same. So someone
Correct.
asked, I know why this is, but I'm going to have you answer it. Is because your cigars have different names to them. So Chris was like, how did you get the names for your cigars? So I'll let you answer that one.
So when I was a kid, my dad was a horse trader, so I grew up in the horse industry. Um, I did English fox hunting. I did Western trail rides. I did show horses. But I also rode 15 different horses every week because he bought and sold horses all the time. And then I rode in the local rodeo. Ultimately, worked my way up to riding bulls in the local rodeo. So I have a big history on the bull side of the world, I guess. I got a lot of bull with me, I suppose.
He's
So
got
so
some
the very
bulls.
yeah. So the very first cigar kind of made sense. It's Bodacious, one of the most famous PBR bulls in the
Hmm.
world, well, in history. So the
Hmm.
first one was Bodacious, and our logo is a bull, so it's
Hmm.
perfect kind of combination of things.
Hmm.
And so after that, it was like, well, I guess I could just keep that trend up. So each of the cigars pays homage to a famous PBR bull, and Bushwhacker, another famous one, and so all of them are in the top 500.
So there you go. Now you know.
I
Now you
I
know.
I knew that, but the part that I
Yeah.
didn't know was him actually participating. You were
Hmm.
participating in the rodeo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I,
I,
I
I
honestly,
think I've been to one rodeo in my life.
I've been to more than one, and honestly, I
Hmm.
only rode bulls because that's all the women wanted the bull riders. So
Yep. They do.
So that's what I did wrong. I
Yep.
never
Should have
yeah,
been
rode
able.
bulls.
yeah,
That
yeah.
explains so much.
I rode Broncos for 4 years before I ever got on a bull. But I was getting older, and I'm 16 years old, and all I see all the hot cowgirls going over to the bull riders when they get out of the ring, and I was like, oh, I can ride a bull. That'll be easy. I'm a big guy, strong kid at the time, and yeah, the only problem is that the horses run away when they buck you off or you get off on your own accord, and the bulls turn around and try to kill you. So
Yes,
I
they
wouldn't
they
recommend it. The
they want
women
a
are not that.
vengeance.
Yeah, the women are not that important.
Oh, believe me, I have no intention of getting on the back of a bull, and even if it's sitting still, no intention whatsoever.
That's why that 8 seconds is important. A lot of people can't last that 8 seconds.
That's a long ride.
It is a
It
long ride.
it really is, especially if a bull's
Mhm.
got momentum and they have a
Mhm.
consistent buck. You can
Mhm.
you get caught up in that momentum, and it's really hard to make it. I rode.
Mhm.
I didn't ride a whole lot of bulls to 8 seconds. It's tough. I went back to Broncos pretty quickly after that. Once they tried to kill me a couple times.
Ah, man, much respect for people that
Mhm.
do that. That's
Mhm.
just that,
Oh yeah.
not for me,
Yeah, a lot
obviously.
of broken bones. A lot of broken bones. So you have upcoming. You'll be traveling a lot, and you'll be going to different places and different shops and conventions. So if you could kind of tell us what your year looks like or what's coming up.
Wow. So I've got I'm in Pennsylvania and New Jersey Monday through Friday next week. Um, then I'm in Las Vegas for TPE on the 31st through the 2nd of February. And then and I've got events at shops in Pennsylvania and New Jersey next week, plus visiting new shops and shops that are carrying my cigars. So I'm from
Hmm.
Pittsburgh all the way over to Philadelphia and then up into New Jersey. And then the 4th through the 7th, we're in the Dominican Republic testing some new blends. Um, and then after that, I actually have a vacation. I'm taking a cruise for a couple weeks, which will be nice. And then I've got my old Kentucky Herf at Fat Ash Cigars in Ashland, Kentucky. I've got the NFG, can't call it a fest, but the NFG at Underground Cigars. I've
Which is
got,
where we are tonight.
Yep,
oh, all right.
here at
And
the
then
underground.
that's awesome. Tell everyone I said hi.
Greg says hi.
So, and then I've got PCA because they moved that up to
A
March.
couple of people did say, Greg, who?
Yeah, I'm not going to yell out what they need to hear, but they know it. So I'll see everyone at NFG. I picked up Blow and Smoke when I was down there last time, so
Oh,
I'm doing an
great.
event there when I'm in town.
Very
What a
nice.
what a cool
Mhm.
shop.
Mhm.
I'll probably go visit the Chief in Decatur while I'm in town as well. Um, and there's a couple other shops that I've been talking to that I think we can probably get in that area when I'm down there. So that'll be probably a 4 or 5 night trip.
Mhm.
Um, and then I've got a bunch of other events scheduled. It's my first, I think the first 4 months of the year, I'm not home 75% of the time.
That's a good
So
thing because you
yeah.
said this is your fifth year, so
Hmm.
your name is out there, and then you're getting known, and then you're also kind of coming back home to the underground.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the underground has been, it really is. It's a home for boutiques. The crowd there appreciates boutiques. Certainly the owners appreciate boutiques. All of the staff. I mean, I have a great time every time I'm there. I
Mhm.
just did that cut and light in December, and everyone is just so welcoming. It feels like
Mhm.
home.
What?
Mhm.
Who, us? Welcoming? Nah. You must be talking about the underground that's in North Carolina. I mean,
Mhm.
that's closer to your home as it is.
Yeah, a little bit
Uh,
close.
what? So you got you've got really three big events, three big festivals coming up. You've got the TPE in Vegas in January, followed by NFG here at the Underground
Mhm.
in
Oh,
Fort
bottle
Worth.
kill.
Bottle kill. And then following that, you've got PCA.
Mm-hmm.
What are you bringing out new for each of these? And I really want to know what you're bringing out new for us at NFG, because that way I need to know whether or not I need to save money for it.
So it's tricky, going through the trademark opposition thing really slowed things down because I had the Intimidator, which is our new release that's coming out in late February ish. I That's been in the aging room for a year because I didn't want to release it and then have to change the bands. So I've got a couple things in the queue that are ready, but small company and cash flow, we'll be coming out
Hmm.
with things as quickly as we can. So we're possibly going to do 3 new cigars in this year, but we're definitely doing 2 new
Oh,
cigars.
very
And it's
nice.
But I've never been in a rush to come out with a new cigar. Honestly,
No.
it's we just kind of got a backlog because I didn't want to release anything new during the opposition. Uh,
Hmm.
so I don't mind waiting a year if that's what it takes. I'm just not going to release something that doesn't add value to the line,
Hmm.
and add value to the cigar community. I think it's really important to not just rush.
Hmm.
Each company has their own approach. In
Right.
some cases, it's limited release and they just come out with new stuff all the time, but you can't get it again. Some companies build their core line and want to make sure that they've got, recurring buys on that core line. Occasionally you remove one if it's not selling one or one takes over another. But from my perspective, it's got to be a blend that adds value, and kind of builds out the line, which is one of the things the Avalanche did. I really needed a
Hmm.
milder cigar in the lineup, and so that's why we came out with it. But it took two
And
years.
but as a consumer and tobacconist, I want to say thank you for not rushing them, because sometimes the companies like build they like, oh, we're coming out with a new one, we're coming out with a new one, and then you try it and you're like, oh my goodness, that should have rested a little bit longer, it should have had more time. And a lot of times I let those cigars rest for a year before I've smoked them, or 6 months. You can tell the difference between the 6 months versus the year on them,
Oh,
and,
absolutely. I
and when
mean,
they first came out. So
Hmm.
I appreciate that, so thank you.
Yep.
yeah, we have something that's built in that also gives us a little bit of an edge in terms of getting a decent age on them. We don't release any cigars to the retail market until they've been in country for 2 months. So we're adding another 2 months beyond when we know they're ready. And
Hmm.
that's really just to get a nice solid balance of humidity, kind of acclimate them to
Hmm.
the climate here.
Hmm.
Or, our other announcement is our new fulfillment partner. So it's going to be the environment in Reno, um, that the cigars will be sitting in for a while before we release them to cigar shops.
So you, since you brought that up, what is this new fulfillment center? I mean, we've talked about it, but let our viewers know.
Well, I'm super excited to be a part of Illusione. Their fulfillment company is Fumer Internationale. Fumer's been around for I think 16 years, so much longer than Illusione cigars. So they've been doing
Hmm.
fulfillment for quite a while. They're quite
Hmm.
mature in their process. My first order went to them in December, so they had all of that order's product line. I shipped all of my cigars from my Virginia warehouse to them a week or a week and a half ago. I think the last week of December.
Hmm.
So now they've got all the products. So we're getting ready to put up the invoicing system. So they'll handle invoicing. They'll handle the import side of the business, basically freeing me up to stay on the road
Hmm.
longer because as a one man show, I'm the head of shipping every
Hmm.
day of the week when I'm home.
Yeah.
I'm the accounting manager. I'm the marketing guy. I'm everything. So I had to be home, and I couldn't stay on the
Hmm.
road for more than 7 or 8 days because I had to get orders out. So
Hmm.
now with them taking this on for me, and allowing me to be a part of their process, it's going to give me exposure to all of their accounts that already
Hmm.
handle the other cigars that Fumer
Hmm.
handles.
Hmm.
And I've already gotten referrals to shops that want to carry the brand because now they're in the system. So this is going to be, like I said, the fifth year. That's the one.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think it's going to be great for you to be able to build. You get more time to build your cigar company, your cigars. So
Hmm.
I'm excited for you.
What
Yeah,
has been what has been in these past 5 years? What has been the greatest joy for you?
um, wow, that's a great question. I usually find myself very prepared to answer questions. I think it's the community. I think it's just I'm a people person at heart. I don't do well alone in a room. Thank God you guys are here in this room with me, because otherwise I'd be sitting in here alone. But it's, I thrive on meeting new people. I did government recruiting for 25 years, so interviewing people, talking to people all the time. I love hearing people's stories. And then obviously, if they smoke my cigar and they love it, that's it warms my heart. Because it's a true passion. I'm not doing this to make money. I mean, it would be nice if one day I did, but I did it just to just to follow a passion. And I just, this industry is so welcoming, so kind. There's so many brand owners that have been in the business much longer than me that have been very helpful, answered any questions I had, always willing to open up their mind and their hearts and their ears, talk me through anything. It's that community. That's probably the highlight.
All right,
Uh,
I gotta put this little comment up from Ash Lily. We love Ash Lily. She was able to
I know.
come up
I was
this
like,
past.
"Hi, Ash."
She says, I have the greatest questions. And then she comes back and says that, Red, you're so knowledgeable and looking so beautiful.
Oh,
Which
thank
agree.
you. Thank you.
Looking beautiful and very quite very knowledgeable.
But what's the
Uh,
question?
my
How,
question is what where do you find the most joy?
Which he
oh,
answered.
yeah.
Which you answered.
Hmm.
What has been outside of the name change, because I know this name change has been a challenge and has been stressful and has been costly for you. What has been, so we just talked about what's been your greatest joy. What has been your greatest challenge or your greatest disappointment that if you could go back and do it differently, you would?
Oh, wow. I think I didn't know the right questions to ask in the beginning
Hmm.
because I'd never done it. I understood
Hmm.
as a consumer, I thought I knew a lot about cigars, but honestly, the learning curve is tremendous. I mean, we're talking about centuries of cigar history and centuries of knowledge. And in the beginning, like I said, many brand owners would answer any question I had, but I didn't know the questions to ask. And so the struggle was just not knowing what I didn't know.
Hmm.
And that's been a bit of a frustration. Even now, I feel like I know about 55% of what I need to know.
Hmm.
So I'm barely halfway there. There's so much knowledge. There's so many people willing to share it. The industry is
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
really a solid group willing to share.
Hmm.
And now I've got Eric Espinosa's phone number. I can just call him and be like, Eric, I got this question, and he'll answer
Hmm.
anything, and very
Hmm.
honestly. Um,
Hmm.
so it's nice that now I'm getting better at learning what I
Asking the
don't
right
know.
questions.
Yeah, ask the right questions.
Hmm.
That's what Einstein said. He said, any
Hmm.
problem I need to solve, I want to make sure first that I'm asking the right question.
Hmm.
Right. In the
So.
software industry, we have this term we call it the unknown unknowns.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the questions that you don't know to ask, and so therefore
Hmm.
you don't know what the answers are, and it is the greatest challenge I think in any industry when it comes to figuring out what those are and then how to get the answers to them.
So
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you, what would someone who's starting a new brand and starting the brand, what would be like the top three questions that they should ask?
How much money do I need?
Hmm.
Number one, I severely underestimated. Um, I thought, wow, I'm going to put some money aside. I was putting money aside for years before I ever started the brand, before I ever got a cigar in the country, and in the end, it wasn't enough. If you really if you really want to do it right, you need more money. So they need to understand what it's going to cost. And then the other piece is there's individual state regulations that differ state to state,
Hmm.
and you wouldn't even think about that if you've never been selling a product in more than one
Hmm.
state. Like if you have a retail shop, you're selling in that state. You can learn
Right.
every rule about that state pretty quickly.
Right.
But it's understanding the nuances from state to state, which is another thing that Fumer does for me. because they're going to carry all the distributor licenses for all the states. I don't have to worry about filing that paperwork monthly.
Woohoo!
Yeah,
Very nice.
it's a
It's a
big burden.
huge. It
Yeah.
is. It's
And
huge.
then yeah, and then the other thing is I wouldn't have become my tobacco importer of license to start. I was I was trying to save money. Anyone
Mhm,
that's going to be your tobacco importer is going to charge you, pennies a stick, and that
mhm,
adds up. So I just figured, well, I can just do it by myself. But the federal regulations around being your own
mhm,
importer of license are tremendous. So
mhm,
those three things are probably the most critical, with money being the big one.
mhm.
It's
It's
very
kind
easy
of
to get discouraged.
it's kind of like what Gabe said. If you see his statement on that one, to bring that up, that one must spend $2 million just to make $1 million in the cigar industry. And I think that everyone sees, oh, you own cigars, you must be a millionaire, multimillionaire, and and then they'll say, oh, just give me a free cigar. It's not costing you anything. When they really don't know the backstory behind everything that you have to do to create that brand.
Yeah, this part of the industry, being a manufacturer, has the lowest profit margins. Now there is a point at which it flips, but it's all based on volume. So when you're small,
Mhm,
at that low profit margin, yeah, every piece of swag you give out is keeping you from having a
mhm,
profit. I
yeah,
haven't taken money out of this company in 5 years. It's all being
mhm,
reinvested. So it's hard for people to get that. Yeah, they think you're rich because you're flying here, you're flying there,
mhm,
but all that money's coming from somewhere. That's coming out
mhm,
of one cigar at a time, one new consumer
mhm,
at a time, one new shop at a time.
mhm,
The same is with us. We're in the cigar industry, and the whiskey and wine and coffee and and the whole aspect of it. But we're on the media side of it, and every bit of swag that we print up, that we give out, that we do, this show, just doing this show costs us money every week to be
mhm,
able to produce this show. Not even That's not even counting the cost of the subscription cost per StreamYard. And we've got zero money coming in, but what we're getting back, there is an ROI on it. That ROI is just not a monetary form of the ROI. It's the brand building, it's the exposure, it's the awareness of it that the ROI comes down to. Well, now you've got to learn how to take that and equate that to a monetary value. How
mhm,
much would I have had to spend in extra advertising to get this amount of exposure or this amount of, brand building, brand awareness, and such? So we understand. It's maybe not to that same degree because not having to invest as much, and because we don't have a product that we're selling, a tangible product to such as a cigar. But it's the business is expensive, and when you're
mhm,
starting out, we're coming up on year 3. Congratulations on year 5. It's a
mhm,
lot of work, and it's not for
mhm.
the weak-hearted.
It's not, nope,
It's
it is
it's
not.
definitely not, and honestly, the value that you are adding to me personally, but also all of the other brands that you have on, it's tremendous. This exposure is critical to small brands, especially, but even the
Mhm,
larger brands, coming out with new product lines and just connecting with the consumer in a way that we wouldn't be able to connect. It's powerful to me, and I really appreciate
mhm,
it.
It's powerful to us when that gets reciprocated as
mhm,
well. I've been frustrated, the past couple of times, to where we like vote and score a cigar high, a well-known cigar, and I'll see that brand, that's behind that cigar will post and reciprocate, you know, our cigar was number one from other companies, but they don't us. And it's like, okay, we're not a small brick and mortar, we're a small media company, but we're still a small company, that we're not just two people or three people or four people that are just doing this for fun. No, we're trying to build a business and
mhm,
investing our time and our money into it as well. So that reciprocated exposure helps us immensely as well. And so yeah, I get it, and it is frustrating when you see that it's not, but you don't let that slow you down. You don't let that stop
Mhm.
you. You keep pushing, and for me,
Yeah.
it drives me even want to push even harder to say, okay, so and so brand will eventually see that leaf and grain is here to stay.
Mhm.
Hmm. Well, we hit the same wall too. You know, as a small brand, retailers want to make sure you're going to stay because they bring in so many new brands that don't last.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
think that's
Mhm.
also why the 5 year mark makes sense because now they've got a company that they know is not going anywhere. You know, we're going to be around, and it's all about building that. I guess the base of time where people understand that you're really in this because of your passion and your dedication to the industry, and you're not going away.
Mhm. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So how's the pairings going?
Well,
Ha,
I want to say this because the good thing about whenever you're having water is you, even if it's mineral water, is you really get the taste of the cigar. And I love pairings. I really, really do because you get new nuances of flavors, right? But whenever you're with water, sometimes we just get carried away with pairings that we actually forget what the cigar tastes like. And so for me, I forgot how the floral in the cigar is, especially at the end. And then you can really taste the coffee notes that are in there. And I think sometimes when you pair it with a whiskey or a stout, it either amps it up really, really a lot or you lose it. It depends on what you're pairing it with. Whiskey, it depends on which whiskey it is because sometimes I've done this with whiskey and I don't remember as much floral as I do. And then whenever I paired it with the stout, I get that heavy coffee, that San Andreas, the chocolates and the coffee,
mhm.
because the
Hmm.
stout's going to amp that up. But it's kind of, I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about the floral in here. And it's just really nice. And now it makes me want to go back, like, damn, I really wish I had that rose mint tea to kind of see how much of the floral would have been brought out in the cigar.
And
So,
yeah, I will tell you that the Habano and the Bushwhacker has a little bit of citrus in it, and if you pair it with a Blue Moon, and I'm not a big beer drinker, but I just accidentally had a had a Blue Moon
uh,
with a Habano Bushwhacker, and those citrus notes just kind of come alive. It's a very
mhm,
interesting. I don't get that a lot in cigars, and
mhm,
but with whiskey, it's completely lost. But if you pair it with
yeah.
something that's going to open your palate a little bit, it's very interesting.
Mhm.
It depends upon the whiskey
Yeah, that's
because
true.
the citrus notes and the fruity notes with my pairing are really coming out with pairing it with this old tub bottled and bond.
All right.
And the old tub bottled and bond has a very heavier mouthfeel. The oils are really nice and strong in the whiskey, and so that's allowing that 100 proof just to roll off your tongue. And the cigar balances out the chocolate notes of the whiskey, and the whiskey is bringing forth those tropical fruit notes and those citrus fruit notes that are known, and especially because it's an Ecuadorian Habano, and the Ecuadorian tobacco is known for those tropical fruit notes.
Yeah, there's a. I'm going to butcher this name, and you can correct me, but is it Glen Morangi
Hmm.
Scotch? There's a particular line that has a lot of citrus notes to it as well. Same thing with this particular cigar; just really brings them out.
Yep. So how's it pairing with your blood oath?
It's pairing fantastic. It's the so it's a dichotomy of flavors where you've got all of this sweetness with all of this floral. So they're standing well on their own. So they're not really competing with each other. It's a completely different flavor coming from each one. So it works very well.
Oh, and so a nice balanced pairing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call that a balanced pairing where each one doesn't overpower, one doesn't enhance the other. each of them are enhanced by and just stand up, but yet there's no clash. They're not
Yeah,
coming in and clashing and, hitting and bouncing off of each other. They're coming in together, and they're kind of so well balanced that they're unified to where it's all one experience.
I think you explained it better.
Good. I need to remember that explanation so that I can go and write that in that chapter in my book.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely explained it very well because yeah, you're right. They're not competing with each other. And when people talk about what would you pair your cigar with, my comment is always, what are you trying to experience? If you really want to enjoy your whiskey, I'll pair it with a milder cigar with less flavor so I can enjoy my whiskey. If I really want to enjoy the cigar, I'm going to make sure that whatever I'm drinking is not going to overpower it. But if you really want to pair well, I think this is a great pairing. You're right because they're not fighting with each other. The flavors,
They're
there's no competition.
harmonious.
Yeah, they're
It's harmonious.
harmonious.
It's
Harmonious.
harmonious.
It's
I like the
harmonious.
way that you said that. Harmonious.
Harmonious.
Mm-hmm.
How's your pairing, Greybeard?
I'm
I ask him as he's puffing.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm enjoying it. It's really nice. I would say that this is more of a contrast style pairing, to where you have notes that it's enhancing, bringing out the notes that you wouldn't necessarily get out of it by itself, while not overpowering each other. So it's, the cigar's not overpowering the whiskey's not overpowering the cigar. The cigar is bringing out some of the more fruity notes of the whiskey because it is toning down the chocolatey notes that is in this whiskey. And the whiskey is allowing those citrus, those tropical fruit notes to come forward and balancing out some of the more earthy type notes that's in there.
Very good.
So that's nice. It's a good contrast pairing. The three types of pairings that we like to look at is, well, you have four types of pairings. You have the pairing that just doesn't work where they just clash. That clash could be one just completely overpowers the other and you just miss everything, or
Hmm.
those flavors clash with each other, and you get that bitter beer face. That red sometimes gets on some of her pairings. Then you have the complementary pairings to where the notes complement each other and they bring each other out. So, where we have fruity notes in both and they're just really coming strong and forward. you know, um, you have the contrast pairings where it's bringing out notes that otherwise would have been a little bit more
Lost.
subtle, lost. And then you have that perfect balance pairing,
Hmm.
which is the goal. Find something that balances with it perfectly. So that's when I say this is one that's for the books, to where they come up and they just stand together as a unified, harmonious unit. That's
Mm-hmm.
the ultimate goal in a pairing, and it's really hard to find that.
Hmm.
And,
So
and
That's
we
my
look.
O.
Yeah,
That's my O spot.
that's the O spot.
the O
We
spot.
we and we look for those types of pairings in whatever it is. When we're pairing wines with foods, we want those flavors to stand up and be able to be harmonious together. I'm going to use that word, Red. Thank you. When we're wines with foods, cocktails with foods, beer with foods, cheese, whatever. When you have those pairings where they just are so harmonious and come together so beautifully, that's the goal. It's hard to find. When you do, it's down in the books.
Yeah, and I guess the other word that comes to mind is it's a marriage of flavors.
Yeah.
They're they're
I've
balancing
used
each
that
other
before
out.
too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've used that one before. It's a good marriage. Can we say
yeah.
that?
It's a good
It's
Yes,
a
it's a
marriage.
good
We
perfect
can we
marriage.
can say it's a good marriage.
it's not one that makes you want to go down to the courthouse and file for a divorce.
No, not that one.
I've experienced that one too.
Yeah.
That's that clash pairing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had plenty of those. I don't, you're gonna get them.
Hmm.
Especially when you're dealing with a cigar that, You don't know the blend, the cigar
Hmm.
manufacturer. Kind of
It's undisclosed.
it's undisclosed, or it's just a Nicaraguan puro. And it
Hmm.
doesn't state what sub-region of
Region.
Nicaragua
Yeah.
it's coming from. That's where you're coming in and you're going, okay, well now I'm going to explore the pairing. I'm going to see, and sometimes you get something that just doesn't work.
So is your experience that we're getting a lot more information than we got 15 years ago about blends?
I would say it's a mix.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's still some that hide the blends that
Hmm.
are not forthcoming. You very rarely see, and we were talking about this when you were here. We'll see a lot of people that will say that, oh, this is a Connecticut wrapper. Okay, well, as what we were talking about, there is no true Connecticut wrapper. There's Connecticut Sun, Connecticut Shade, there's Connecticut Broadleaf, the Connecticut
Hmm.
49 that we were talking about.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But there is no seed that is a pure Connecticut. That's a color that's part of the process, and it's actually better known as a Claro.
Yeah.
But if I know that a wrapper is the Connecticut 49, sun grown, or Connecticut 49 shade
Hmm.
grown, which is based off of the Sumatra, I already know right off, right off the bat of what types of notes that I'm going to get out of that. If it's a
Right.
Habano, if I know that whether it's a Jamastra Habano, uh, a Jalapa Habano, Honduran Habano,
Hmm.
or an Ecuadorian Habano, I know the differences that I'm going to get out of that.
Right.
But you generally don't see it at that level. And that's what I would love to see really change in the industry of not saying, oh, this is a Maduro wrapper. No, it's not. It's a Corojo 98, or it's a Criollo
Hmm.
99. It's a Corojo 2012. That's going to give me information that I need.
Right.
And we don't see that as much as I would like to see.
Mm-mm.
Thank you for
It,
answering that because it's interesting
yeah,
because I feel like I disclose a lot, but not everyone
you do.
does.
Well, and I was going to say thank you for disclosing because whenever you have all the information and you have the knowledge, then you can actually you're you're able to get that O pairing. That's what I call it, is the O pairing. It's the O factor for me. So, and when I have it, I want to replicate it more than once. And so that way, if you know exactly what you're getting out of it and you have that and it meets that expectation, then you're going to do it more than once.
Well, it helps especially newer consumers to know what they like. If you don't know what's in it,
Hmm.
you don't know what you like about it. But if you know, we all know what the wrapper is usually, but
Hmm.
if you know more about what's in the core and you love that
Hmm.
cigar, it helps guide you to your next step.
Well, and it encourages the consumer to step outside of going in and smoking their same cigar that they smoke every single time. I've talked to
Hmm.
so many consumers, and it's like, oh, I only smoke the Padron, or I only smoke Oliva, or I only smoke Fuente, or I only smoke this, and they're quite a bit more hesitant to try an unknown brand.
Hmm.
Well, if I know that I really enjoy the My Father line of cigars, which is My Father and what the Garcia's family they're doing a lot with the Ecuadorian wrappers and their cigars. Well, if I know that I like a particular My Father cigar with its Ecuadorian Habanos or its Ecuadorian Sumatras, and I know that's what's in it, and I know that uh, Fortaleza Libre from Greg Free uh, has a lot of Ecuadorian Habanos and Sumatras and some San Andres in theirs, and those blends are similar, I might be a little bit more willing or adventurous to try something different because I know there's
Hmm.
something that I know that's in it.
Hmm. Exactly. And it also kind of, Gabe brought up another good point that they use the same blends, the big companies right there. So he'll say that the big guys aren't going to say the entire blend because they reuse the same core on another blend later on. or they reuse it and create another cigar. So I mean, and we've seen that happen, you know.
Oh,
So and
absolutely,
you're
yeah.
like, oh, oh my goodness, this smokes exactly a little bit like this one or that one. So I think that's kind of like another reason that they don't. I don't want to say that they want to keep us in the dark, but they do.
Oh, that they do. I mean, we can say the same thing about whiskeys. You know, the 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 luxury line of whiskeys with the Pappy Van Winkles. Uh, I mean, if you know what that blend that's in there, what the mash bill, we call it a mash bill on the whiskey side, you know what that mash bill is, then you know that it's the same mash bill that's in the Wellers. You
Yeah.
know, and I'll go ahead and say this: if you know what the blend is in a particular Opus X, I can find another line that is in, that Arturo Fuente has, whether it's the Hemingway or the 828 or the Don Carlito, and it's the same blend, but it may not have, say, like the media tempo
Hmm.
leaves in there, or it may be aged a bit longer. The same thing that goes with the whiskeys. Same thing that it goes with the wines, and
Hmm.
you're talking about different Bordeaux's. A Bordeaux blend is going to be 5 grapes. Well, where it's grown, in the age that it's grown, and the age
Hmm.
that it's been fermented, the age, the amount of time that it's been aged in the barrels is what's going to come down to the differences. But it's the same 5 grapes.
Right. And well, I have a question for Greg. So you've survived your 5 years. So where do you see you going in the next 5 years?
Well, I mean, profitability, that's number one. Hopefully that's soon. I keep saying it's next month, and that doesn't happen. All these travel expenses coming up are clearly going to make it difficult
Hmm.
to pull any profit from the company. But and also just coming out with new blends. So we do have two new releases this year. One is going to be in the Intimidator, which hopefully is a late February, early March release,
Hmm.
and that's a really exciting blend for us. I can't wait for it to hit the market.
Hmm.
We're going to be doing a Lonsdale uh, that's going to come out as an
Oh,
event exclusive stick,
Mm,
um,
oh, very
and that's
cool.
using some of that same Criollo 98 hybrid that was grown in the
Hmm.
DR, and that's been now 4 years ago. So it's got some really good age on it.
Oh,
And
awesome.
that cigar, yeah, that cigar should be really cool. So it's like I'm
Hmm.
stepping the stepping stones towards a Lancero. Getting
Hmm.
to a Lonsdale is going to kind of move me in that
Yeah.
direction. And that cigar works really well on a Lonsdale. So that'll be coming out. But it's really just about adding retail shops, getting more
Hmm.
consumers excited about the brand, uh, and keeping the same consumers. I don't see any of our lines that are going to go away. Everything is selling really well. Some lines better than others, but we've still got great consumer strength in all of the lines. But just continuing to kind of build out the lineup. You know, and again, just not adding stuff for the sake of adding something, but adding things that make sense, adding things that make value or that add value to the line
Hmm.
that that will help us to get more prominence. But these big events are really impactful for us. PCA
Hmm.
is huge, and it's great to be a part of PCA through the Boutique Cigar Association and be able to economically kind of get the word out about who we
Hmm.
are.
yeah,
And then
because getting those tables at PCA, or those booths at PCA, is not cheap.
it's not, and without the Boutique Cigar Association, honestly, I wouldn't be at PCA because they're doing so much for the boutique industry, allowing us to go to these things that we wouldn't be able to afford otherwise. They're probably the most impactful thing to my business growth in the last year and also in the coming several years than anything else that we're doing is just being a part of the Boutique Cigar Association.
All more the
Very
reason
cool.
why we need to support the Boutique Cigar Association, along with Cigar Rights for America, and along with Premium Cigar Association. All of the associations are doing great things for the industry at all levels.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and the Boutique Cigar Association. So I sit in Zooms every month with companies that have been doing it longer than I have. And I learn something every single time. There's again just so much knowledge, and just trying to build that knowledge base and grow. And the BCA has done so much to that end for me. So I'm very, very thankful for what they bring to the industry.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall in one of those meetings.
It's awesome. Some stuff I can't talk about on the show,
No,
but
that
but
that's why I'm not asking you any questions.
yeah, but most of it is. I mean, every month they bring on an expert. It could be an accounting expert. It could be a federal tax regulation expert. It could be a lawyer. But it's just having an opportunity to pick the brains of people that understand the industry better than I do is it's powerful.
One of the things I got to say that I'm really pleased with what you're doing is even with the name change, the logo, the core of the logo is still there. The wording on the logo has changed, but the way that you're building your brand and growing the brand, increasing the brand awareness, the recognizability. I see that bull surrounded by the red and a circle. I know immediately that it's FYL. Used to be Fuerte, now it's Fortaleza. Uh, I know who it is. I know it's Great Free. You're creating that association, and not a lot of boutique brands are doing that. I still see, and as much as Red and I have talked about, and we've talked with Kathy from Cigar Box Marketing. I've talked with Gabby about this, and we've talked with other brands. Uh, you're missing the point. You can't just create a good cigar and expect people to know about it. You've got to grow the brand. You have to know how to handle the business side.
Yeah, it's business and marketing. I would say that marketing is probably my weakest strength. Um, my passion for cigars overrides everything. But you have to understand your weakness. And when I finally start making money and can hire people, I will hire people in the places where my strength is the least. I think the best leaders will surround themselves with people that are better at doing what they do than I could be myself. And yeah, so marketing's critical. Accounting, whew, I'm horrible at that. But it's I look forward to getting to the place where I can bring experts on that can take care of those things that I'm not great at. The thing that I'm the best at is telling my story, because it's my own story. You know,
Mhm.
my passion with what I've done to get here, why I've done it, how I release new lines, all those things. I can tell that story better than anybody, and nobody can replace
Right.
that. But it's those
Exactly.
back end pieces that I could really afford to get some experts in.
I went to this real estate investing conference a couple of years in a row, and the guy that led these seminars, he always says one thing, and that just resonated with me so much. And it's I don't have to be the smartest man in the building. I need to find the smartest people that specialize in areas that I don't.
Yeah, yeah. My mentor was a former Navy admiral, Jerry Tuttle. May he rest in peace. But he taught me more about leadership than anybody. The military does a really good job at growing leaders,
Hmm.
and he was able to pass that on to me in a way that no one else could. But yeah, that was his thing. Surround yourself with people that are better doing what they do than you could be, and don't be afraid of them. Just bring them on. They're no competition. They still want a visionary leader, but they're going to take care of stuff that you can't take care of yourself.
Exactly.
I like what Gabe says. Gabe, you're dropping some mics on tonight. Um, this is the trick to marketing is identifying what you do different and why that's better, and hammer that into most mind space. And my background is in marketing, um, and that is so true. One of the things we're there. There are podcasts and YouTube shows on cigars that that are dime a dozen. What is it that's different about us? What is that um, differentiation that we can bring out and we can encapsulate on? Because we could just come on and sit and talk, about cigars and BS around about whiskeys and joke and have a great time and probably have an enormous following. But that's not what makes us different. We would just be another run of the
Hmm.
mill cigar show. What makes us different is we bring out the education side of things.
I'm writing down what Gabe said. That's true.
Here, I'll put this back up there so you can see a little bit easier.
Yeah,
Greg, I
thank
gotta say, every single cigar, and I've smoked every single one in your line, number of different times. I've smoked them with just, straight water, smoked them with wines, I smoked them with different styles of whiskeys, and every single one of them, I think I get a new experience each time I come
Hmm.
back to that cigar.
Hmm.
Something that I hadn't really picked up on, the previous times that I've smoked it. That is quality. That is good. That is nice.
Hmm.
Never lose that.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about what Gabe said, and I guess what really differentiates me is the same thing that differentiates the boutique industry as a whole is that creativity. We're
Hmm.
small, we're personally involved in every single thing that happens. And the other thing is we can be a little bit more creative because we don't need to buy 1 million pounds of tobacco to come up with a new line. We can get really creative by getting small batch tobaccos that are very unique and come out with blends that the big guys can't do. So
Hmm.
maybe I'll start capitalizing on that
Hmm.
differentiation in
Hmm.
in the marketing side. So
Right.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
And
You're
and I
you're
think
Go ahead, Red.
and I think that's what consumers want. They want something different that stands out. Because you have some of the bigger ones and you taste their cigars and it kind of mirrors another big one and it kind of mirrors another big one. And so I think that's kind of what the boutique side is it stands out. It's unique, it's different. And you're not going to find it in those big brands, and that's what makes it special.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many great. I mean, there's great big brand cigars too. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot of
Oh,
cigars I
absolutely.
smoke
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
that are legacy brands.
Right.
Um, but when I sat in the BCA pavilion at PCA last year, and we all shared cigars at the end, and I'm smoking through some of those cigars, and there's just a lot of creativity. It's just really it's
Mhm.
great to see, because all the legacy brands were boutiques at one time.
Mhm.
They didn't start out there, and
No.
and
Exactly.
that creativity is what got them where they are.
Mhm. Sure
Yeah.
did.
I mean, another reason why we say so much of explore the pairings is because, you know, there's so many great boutiques and so many great, big name brands. Fuente is always going to have great cigars. Um, Oliva's always going to, Davidoff is always going to have great cigars. My father's is always going to have Patel, Rocky Patel, and Nish Patel are always going to put out great stuff. But at that same hand, while you're smoking those great stuff, smoke Greg Free cigars, smoke
Mhm.
Sebastian cigars from Cavalier, smoke Noel cigars from
Apostate.
Rojas, Apostate cigars,
Mhm.
Chantel's cigars
Mhm.
with Belladama. There's so many smaller companies that are just putting out just
Mhm.
such quality cigars. Luciano, with
Mhm.
everything that he's doing, such quality cigars that if you're only sticking to the big name brands,
You're missing
you're
out.
missing out on the majority of the industry
Hmm.
because
Mhm.
boutiques outnumber the big names.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like what David Jeffrey says, where he says blending cigars, coffee, and whiskey for me is taking other people's art and making it my own,
I
which is
love that.
really cool.
That is
Hmm.
good. That is
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Uh, I'm gonna trademark that tomorrow.
It's already been printed and it's copyrighted by David Jeffries. And since David Jeffries is part of Leaf and Grain Society, we already own it. Sorry.
Well, of course, I'm just kidding because I'm definitely I've learned a lesson about trademarks, so I'm not gonna play that game with anybody.
I was going to say, bring your lawyers. We'll fail because we have even less coming in, but bring your lawyers. It's we'll battle
It
royale.
it's the most expensive education I've ever gotten is
Hmm.
trademark law.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord willing, we are blessed that we have not had to face that, and I'm sure we may have to at some point in time. But you know, it's all part of the business. It's all
Hmm.
part of growing.
Yes,
So,
it
Greg, thank you so much for coming on again.
is.
I think you're our first guest that has been a repeat visitor,
Repeat.
and so it's an honor
Hmm.
to host you on the show again, and that you'd be
Hmm.
willing to come back on
Come
again.
back and put up with our shenanigans.
Yeah, it tells us that we've got something that's good. So thank you, sir. Good luck with the continued rebranding with a new name. Real happy, excited for you to hear what you've got coming out. Um, and let us know again how we can help you with, you're doing an event someplace, let us know. We'll mention the event on the
Hmm.
show and we'll put it up on our calendar on the website. Do everything that we can to help you continue growing and make year 5 the best year yet.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you guys. I was so thrilled to be able to be back on the show. So I'm glad
Hmm.
I'm the first one to do that, but
Hmm.
we'll be back again next year. I look forward to that.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Most definitely.
So, Red, what do we got coming up?
I say that we do our tea and cigar pairing for next week.
We don't have a guest next week.
Nope. No guest next week. We have a pairing next week. The
We have
week
a
after,
pairing
we have a guest. Hmm.
the week after we have a guest. Okay.
Hmm.
All right.
Yes.
Well, we've got some good things coming up. We've tried cigar and tea before,
Hmm.
so I'm excited to come back and try this again to see what we can come up with.
Hmm.
Love exploring the pairings. So
Hmm.
so everybody
And it
knows
can't be
we've got
Tennessee tea. It can't be Tennessee tea
it can't be a Tennessee tea or a Kentucky
or
tea. It's got to be an
Kentucky or
actual.
Kentucky. Yeah, it's got to be an actual tea.
All right. Well, everybody, please come back and see us next week. We've got pairings, we've got guests coming up, we've got TPE. We're going to be out at TPE. We've got the NFG coming up in March, and then followed by PCA, and so lots of great things. We thank you and appreciate everybody. As we always say, explore the pairings.
There's something for everyone. Have a good night, y'all.
Good night, everybody.